So I want to make this video kind of like a video of rhetorical questions. Something I said at the end of one of my last videos I just made. I was like, when people say it was a bad trip, it was when I was talking about how, like, I don't believe in bad trips, like, when it comes to, like, psychedelics type shit. And I mean, I guess it's the same thing with cannabis. I mean, you can have a bad cannabis experience or a bad psychedelic experience but my question is, what makes it bad? Like, why does someone say it's bad? Because some of the things that people say, like when they describe when they had a bad trip, to me, it sounds like a good trip, right? Like, it sounds like a deep trip. And it's just their intention was not to take it deep. Like, they didn't want to travel dimensions or go to the other side of the universe or like meet entities or jester beings or little like fractal. No, they just was like, I just want to try to heal my depression. But because of that, obviously they're gonna have, when they hit the deep moment or they start to leave their body, they're gonna say it's bad. But is that the only thing? Like, what is really the thing? Like, I guess this is a bunch of rhetorical questions because I don't expect people to answer it. I mean, you guys can answer it in the comments, but, like, it's more like when someone says that was a bad trip or they have a bad experience on cannabis. Let's say they have, like, an anxiety attack on cannabis. Well, what's really causing the anxiety? Like, because it's not necessarily the cannabis as much as it's the thoughts that the person has at that moment in time. And, like, the cannabis is just speeding up the mind, helping thoughts just boom, 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 boom. And, like, if it's thoughts you don't really want to think, it's gonna be anxiety. And you're gonna be like, oh, fuck this. But if you smoke weed and you're someone like me who's like, when I get high, I start thinking about deep philosophical shit or things about the universe or how is reality made or what's the purpose of life or like, so I start deep thinking about that type of shit or deep thinking about some of my business ideas or some of my other things. So I just kind of go on a deep mind tangent about that type of shit. But when somebody says they had a bad cannabis experience, they're not talking about they smoked weed and it made them overthink about their business plans. Like, I don't know. I was just sitting here like, why do people trip? Because it's, the reason why I trip is different than why other people trip. Why do people think that being sober is the thing? Like, I mean, well, I can kind of answer that question. When, in the 1960s, when I think it was 1960s, Ronald Reagan or somebody started the war on drugs. And that war on drugs was the start of every generation, like, after that, up until, like, now. But every generation in between now and then was kind of brainwashed to think, like, drugs are bad, okay? And it's, like, better to stay sober. And you want to know your brain on drugs? Take an egg, fry it in a frying pan. Put your brain on drugs. That type of thing. And they were kind of sold that message. So even if you're a dude that smokes weed, and even if you're a dude that trips balls, even if you're a dude that whatever, if you grew up with that propaganda might be slightly in the back of your mind and might be the reason why you don't feel comfortable smoking weed all the time, or maybe why you don't feel comfortable tripping as much as you would like, or maybe why you don't feel comfortable because you have these ideas from that thing. And it's like, that's kind of what I wanted to wrap this around and be like, all the rhetorical questions can only be answered by the individual person. The reason why I say rhetorical questions, and like, yeah, you can answer them, but a lot of times, like, your answer is going to be different than the next person's answer. And your answer is going to be different than my answer. Your questions will be different. Which, like, I don't know. You could be questioning, should you take the, ayahuasca, or the Hawaiian baby widow seeds, or the LSD and the mushrooms? Or you could be the type of person that's thinking, should I trip this weekend or not? Like, what you're asking yourself is going to be a different thing. Should you start the business that you've been working on or not? Like, the answers are going to be different depending on who you are. What type of business are you starting? Depending on, and if you want to start a business, those rhetorical questions, what is stopping you? Like, what is stopping people from doing the things that they want to do? Living the life that they want to live? It goes back to when I was talking. I feel like this whole week I've been kind of on this thing about, like, intentions and this whole thing, but I really, like, that matters. Why you trip, why you smoke weed, why you do drugs, why did you start a business, why are you wanting to start a business, why are you waking up in the morning, like, why? Everyone's why is different, but you gotta, like, once you figure out your why, what you want to do, then you'll kind of know how to answer those questions. The questions of, why don't you trip as much as you want? Why don't you smoke as much as you want? Why do you do things that you don't want to do more than you do things you do want to do? And, that could be because the society you grew up in made you think that it is noble to sacrifice your own life, to do something you hate just to, provide. Like, yeah, provide. But don't forget to provide to your own soul. Don't forget to provide to yourself, right? Like, I don't know. This whole thing, like, why do people have anxiety? Why are people depressed? The answers are different because everyone has depression or anxiety for a different reason. Like, you can both have depression, but y'all could be both depressed for two completely different reasons. And it will take two completely different solutions to solve the problem. But if you don't start asking yourself the questions, you'll never solve any of the problems. Like, any of the problems. I mean, how many people kind of just accept they have anxiety, they have depression, they want to start a business but they don't, they want to live a certain way but they don't, they want to do something they want to do but they don't, and then they always make up excuses of why they can't do the things that they want to do, why they can't live the way that they want to live, why they can't smoke weed as much as they want, why they can't, like... But whatever story they're telling themselves, that's why. Like, it's the stories that you're telling yourself. It's the things that you think are real, when nothing is real but what you say is real. Nothing is real besides what you make, what you do, and what you think. So, like, we gotta kind of ask ourselves the questions that, like, the reason why I say rhetorical questions is because they're all questions that can be, that everyone, like, asks, or everyone's trying to whatever. How to get rid of depression, how to get rid of anxiety, how to start a business, how to do something that you want to do even though you don't have the energy to do it, or why don't you have the energy, or why do you live the way you do, why do you feel the way you do. Like, so many questions. And there's only one person that can answer the questions for you, and that's you. Like, once you start analyzing the questions that need to be asked, like, first you got to figure out what questions need to be asked in your life. Because the questions that need to be asked in my life were different. Like, 2 years ago when I ended up single, I had to ask myself, why did I end up single? Why am I living alone? Why this? Why do I feel like this? Why do I feel like that? Why was I so scared to sleep alone? Why was I so scared to be single? Why was I, like... All these things that I had to ask myself. Why was I so afraid of money? Like, I was so anti-money that I was like, I'm fine being poor, whatever. I'll give my music away for free. I'll do all that. Yeah, it's great. But if somebody's willing to pay you for a beat, let them pay you for a damn beat. Like, I don't know. Why did I not relaunch my business sooner? Why did I, the questions go on and on and on. But make sure you don't get caught up on just asking the questions, or don't get caught up in the whole woe is me, like, why me? Why did this happen to me? No. Yeah, ask the question, but do not ask the question if you're not willing to try to figure out a solution. Because then you're just going to sit in a woe is me attitude, in a woe is me mentality, in a woe is me vibe. Instead, it's more like, who am I and who do you want to be? And then walk the steps that you need to take to become the person you want to be. How do you want to live? Which way are you living now? And how do you actually want to live? Then you make the steps every single, like a small step, as many as you can, to try to get closer to actually living the life that you actually want to live. For me, it started with literally, I started smoking when I wanted to. I had to sacrifice. I had to quit smoking weed, and I had to make the sacrifice to say, well, I want to get high, but I have to quit smoking weed, and then save up my paychecks, and then do this thing, and then I started making decisions and started doing this thing. But, I had to start making decisions to figure out, well, how do I want to live? And, the smallest thing is, I want to be able to take my vape out and hit some THC whenever I want. It's a very simple start, but that's just me. I knew that in order for, how do I start my abundance? How do you start your abundance will be different than how I started my abundance, but your abundance has to start somewhere. It's not going to start with the $1 million. It's not going to start with the successful business. It's not going to start with the successful YouTube channel. How you start is you start. So, why, goes back to the questions. People want to do YouTube. They want to do social media, but they don't. Why? So many people care more about what other people think about them than what they will think about themselves when they're on their deathbed. I care more about what I'm going to think about myself on my deathbed than I do about what other humans think about me. So I do things that the man at my deathbed will be proud of. I live a certain way that I know at my deathbed, I'll be like, I'm glad I lived that way. I made a typing post on YouTube the other day about how, I'm glad that, I don't live a normal life. Because normal life, normal seems boring. Thank God, I don't live a normal life. Because, my life is so fucking exciting. Even though, I don't need to do much. I don't need to go anywhere. I don't need to go do things. I am doing things all day because it's, I'm me. I don't know how to explain it. I live the life that I actually want to live. Besides that, I've been trying to take care of all this business shit, and it's getting annoying because it's taking time away from me trying to make some music. I just want to make music, but there's things that have to be done in order for me to be able to make music as much as I want. So in 5-10 years, if I want to be able to make music whenever I want 5-10 years from now, I have to take care of some things now that'll help me live the life I want to live 5 years from now. And that's what I mean by the steps, those little things, whatever you got to do. You got to ask yourself those questions. What do you need to do? And then try to do those things that you need to do. And it could be, what do you need to do physically to fix your life physically? What do you need to do mentally to fix your mind mentally? It's not that I don't believe in mental health issues, depression, anxiety, all that. I believe in them. I believe that humans have more power than they realize. So If you want, you can beat your depression up. If you want, you can beat the living shit out of your anxiety. But if you want, you're the one that has to get strong enough to do it. You're the one that has to ask the questions of figuring out how to do it. Because the way that I beat up my anxiety, the way that I beat up my depression, the way that I got rid of like my mental health issues is different than the way other people are going to have to. You know, like obviously if you know me, you know I use psychedelics and plants and herbs and like all this other shit, but what worked for me might not work for you. But you don't like, that's why I said you gotta ask yourself these questions, because like the questions I asked myself might have nothing to do with your life. Like the questions I asked myself to actually better myself and better my life might mean nothing to you. So you gotta figure out the questions you gotta ask yourself, because those are the things that mean something to you. Because my questions meant nothing to you, just like your questions will most likely mean nothing to me. You know? We gotta kind of figure out our own self in our own life.